This is Dave Meltzer with Entrepreneur the Playbook, and I have an unbelievable friend here, a kicker for now the 49ers, Robbie Gould. Welcome to the Playbook.
Thanks for having me on the Playbook.
Now, you're one of my favorite players, and I sometimes screw things up, but the reason is I love quarterbacks. You know, I ran Lee Steinberg, and we built a big practice, baseball, football, boxing, on a one philosophy. If we could get the quarterback, we would own everything because everybody wanted to hire the quarterback. Now, position-wise, you played kicker, but what I liked about you is your leadership qualities were the same as the quarterback. That's your personality. Where did that come from?
Well, I think a lot of it has to do with, there's only 32 kickers in the NFL, right? So, you talk about when you're the older player in the locker room and you're going through situations. I've pretty much, including up to this week, I've been through every situation you could possibly be through, except for being traded, right? So,
or double doinking.
Oh yeah,
game-winning field goal. But you don't want to go through that
one. But I think like the biggest thing is like as you get older, it's about your legacy, what you leave behind, how you can help young guys not make the same mistakes you made when you were a younger player. And I think if you can bring that into a locker room, it helps you to win, one, but also I think it helps the guys in the locker room understand how hard it is to win and what it's like to be in the lifestyle of being an NFL player.
And, number one, you walked on it. We invited you to walk on by Joe Paterno at Penn State. Incredible kicker in college, unbelievable kicker for the Bears, and furthermore through your career right now. But being a kicker, and I know you're a good golfer, but is probably the most difficult of all sport positions, in my opinion, because out of everyone, you don't really do the same thing as the rest of the team.
For sure.
Right. And then you literally are you're kind of separate, and then you're literally counted on more than anyone else to win the game more times than even the quarterback.
Yeah, I think, what's interesting is if you look at the kicking position, for most teams, I'm scoring every time somebody scores a touchdown. And then when we don't convert on fourth down, you're going out to kick a field goal. And usually that's probably about 52 to 54% of your offensive points. So like it's crazy to think that, kickers aren't a very integral part of your roster, right? And I don't want to discount the other specialist positions for sure, but I think when you look at wins and losses and you look at how close and the margin of error of a coach keeping his job on one missed field goal versus getting an extension or getting a raise or winning a Super Bowl, those are the minute details that go into it.
It's interesting because I had Apollo Ono and John K. Coyle, speed skaters, who the joke is, first, second, third.
Sure.
I joked around that John Coyle lost by literally, this much the gold medal. I said if he had my nose, he would have won. But the same can be true, this season with the Bears and their kicker, right? Like if by the size of my nose, if that ball moves that much, he's a hero.
For sure.
And everything's fine in Chicago.
Yeah, it's just, you never know how it's going to end up, right? If you work hard, if you have a chip on your shoulder, if you're mentally tough, if, you go through and putting yourself in game situations, those are the moments that make those times easier, right? So I'm sure the speed skaters you talk to, when they went through their preparation, they were preparing for what it'd be like if they were a little tired down the stretch, or what it'd be like if I start out strong, what's that finish going to be? Or, the cool part about athletes, for the most part, is what your strengths are. The hardest part for an athlete is trying to identify their weaknesses and saying, this is not my strong suit. And then trying to make those weaknesses better, but playing into those, right? So I think if you look at how the chemistry of quarterbacks, wide receivers, like some people aren't the fastest guy, but he might be really strong and he might be a great possession receiver. Well, that fits in a lot of systems, right? And at the end of the day, I think that's why Bill Belichick and Tom Brady are so good. I mean, the way they prepare, the way that Bill knows how to insert guys into that roster every single year. I mean, what they're doing is incredible.
Incredible. I agree. Now, that mental aspect carries over into life. I bet you don't get too nervous over a 3-foot putt like other people. But in business, it's a whole nother thing. You have, a new company, Eventlify, and you guys have a software that handles all the logistical practices for golf. and from registration through the process of event planning, producing, et cetera. Do you find that mental toughness to carry over into the entrepreneur side of things?
Absolutely. You know, what's kind of interesting is our company started basically because I was running 2 charity golf tournaments in 5 days. One here in Chicago where we raised about $1 million for a children's hospital. And then a second one on a Friday that was in my hometown, which is a low to middle income area, that we're raising 100 grand. I had spreadsheets everywhere. I had Microsoft Word documents laying out on my, my island, and my wife's like, "What are you doing? Like, this is where I cook. Like, this is our home." I'm like, "Honey, this is my makeshift office right now, right?"
It's for the kids.
So I called my brother-in-law. It's 11 o'clock at night. I was like, "Hey, listen, like, dude, I can't keep doing it this way. Like, it's so hard. Like, I gotta wait till I get home at 10 to like contact people." So we started looking for some things, and I'm big into branding. I think that branding for people, sponsors, to be able to raise money is a huge deal. So we started looking around, and I was like, let's put something together that will challenge the status quo, right? What does mental toughness in business mean? You know, when you're a startup company and you're going through the bumps and bruises of making sure that the product's perfect, right? Or what is it that other people may need in use cases, and you find a way to, utilize those to put it in your software. So basically anything that we have from a registration, credit card processing, website, you go to even to the back end of managing your live and silent auction, to having live revenue generation and expense generation reports, so you can tell people, hey, we're almost to our goal. These were things that mattered most to me, but it was also a way that I could communicate to my clients, right, to the customers that were coming. So this has been an amazing venture. It's been really, really awesome to be able to work with a lot of organizations to help them raise extra money, and I'm pretty excited about where it's going. And then we did this little spin-off. It's called Eventlify Social. And what Eventlify Social is a giveaway program. So basically, we go to partners like PJ Superstore, Callaway, Travis Matthew, OGO. It could be, ClickCaddy. All these companies, you find partners, and we do video vignettes, and we give the latest and greatest of the hottest trending products in the golf industry. And a lot of that had to do with just being able to say, hey, listen, like, this is what we're trying to do, So the football platform has definitely helped move that business in the right direction, but it's also pretty unique to be able to showcase these other clients and partners, what they do for a living.
One of the things I know about kickers as well is the vision side of things. I always say, for kids especially, like, I try to create a vision for them.
Sure.
Because if they can't see, and I think one of the positive things about my own brand, after representing and big names and your heroic, is I always felt detached. Like, even Warren Moon, my business partner, you can look at him, but looking like this, I can never really identify. Like, I can be a better quarterback than Warren Moon.
Yeah, right.
At 62, he still looks like he could play.
No doubt.
But one of the things I think that's cool is, and I illuminate my own humanness, but watch me on the internet, most people are like, what, I better looking, smarter, faster. Like, I've lowered the bar to, like, hey, if he can do it, I can do it.
Sure.
And I think to have vision is so important. Do you see a carryover for you? Because I'm sitting here going, dude, that takes I'm a serial entrepreneur, right? I've been doing this since I'm 25, more than you've been alive probably. And I'm sitting here going, I've been around more charitable golf tournaments than anyone, and I've thought about cleaning up the process. I have a sponsorship thing that I want to show you that fits right in. But to think about the social side, I never thought, and I'm a video guy.
Yeah.
Where does that come from?
Well, I think a lot of it has to do with just the change in the trends of how you market your company, right? Players are brands. That's what they are, right?
It pisses off the NFL.
And it is.
And the teams.
Yeah, and there's limitations to what they can do. Now you go to where in order for this all to work, there has to be passion, there has to be authenticity, and there has to be a reason of why you do it. Well, the reason why I did it is because I knew that there was an issue of there's nothing all-inclusive. I did it because I love the game of golf. And third, I have a passion to help people. Like, our price point is $500.
Oh, wow.
Like, it's perfect for any corporate outing to any high-level 180, 200 golfers, right? And the reason for that is we wanted to make sure that everybody could use it. And then also, when everyone's using it, we wanted to make sure that on the other end, they're able to monetize that, right? But I think in order for it to work, just like I'm sure you've seen, people buy into this concept of podcasts and what you're talking about and hearing these stories. But it has to be authentic, right?
Right. So to that, part of authenticity is invulnerability, and invulnerability comes from vulnerability.
Sure.
And I think the quarterback and the kicker is the most vulnerable person. And you're going through different stuff right now and signing and, different perspective of vulnerability. But to everyone else, it's difficult because you want to portray your brand in a certain way. And yet, as a professional athlete, it's tough to be vulnerable. And then even worse, as an entrepreneur, you make yourself really vulnerable.
Sure. I think a lot of that has to do with understanding the challenges that go with it, right? Everything's not going to be perfect, but it's about how you respond to it. How do you react to it? Listen, like every fan in the National Football League wants your quarterback to complete 100% of your passes, your kicker to make every kick, your receiver to, catch every ball, to every linebacker making every tackle. But the reality is that doesn't exist, right? But that's kind of the way that the sport is, and that's why the National Football League is what it is, right? A multi-billion-dollar business with the fandom, the craziness, right? And I think a lot of that helps whenever you're in entrepreneurship, because at the end of the day, like, you have to lead people. You have to be able to communicate. You have to be able to understand that there are pain points for everybody, and you got to find ways to best help them, right? But the same thing goes for your teammates. There's things that you're going to go through in a locker room, and you have to be there for them, and I think there's a lot of similarities between running your own business. And there's also a lot of growing pains too, for sure.
The subtleties of success are very well known in all sports. These moments can just shift your entire existence.
Sure.
We saw it here in Chicago. Yep. How do you deal with, and people ask me this as an entrepreneur, I always say the only place that life is fair, is where there's pigs and Ferris wheels and all of that. It's just not fair in business or in football. There's plenty of guys I believe that are, believe it or not, I believe that are as talented at kicking, but they may not be able to seize the moment.
Sure.
How do you deal with fairness, or give me your perspective of fairness?
I think it goes back to vision, right? Like, you have to be able to practice like you're going to play in a game. And when you're building a product or you're an entrepreneur, you got to have forward thinking, right? So yeah, sure, we have a platform that solves your processes. Great. That's awesome. And I'm super excited about it, and it's a validated product. But at the end of the day, like, I'm not satisfied that I'm giving you that. I'm looking for the next best thing, module, portal, view, sponsorship package, communications of some sort, outside of what you normally do, right? So, like, I think as a player, you have to have a vision for what you're going to go through. As a kicker, you look at the weather. As crazy as it sounds, what's the wind going to be? Like, okay, well, listen, if it's going to be really windy, we're going to put ourselves in a situation where we're going to kick mostly downwind to be successful, but then you're going to kick a few into the wind. And when you're in Chicago, you can't really prepare if you're in California in December to come here and play in snow, right?
Or a dome.
Right. So, like, you put yourself in a place to be successful. You go through, hey, we're going to ice the kicker. Hey, we're going to go through a hurricane field goal. Hey, we're going to go through, kind of this fumbled snap, like things that you don't want to have happen that come up, but you go through them because it makes you that much better of an athlete. But it also, the same thing goes for business.
And in business, the majesty of calmness is an essential thing. It's something that my partner Warren Moon taught me. Sure. I call him QB1 Kenobi, right? To completely calm. What's the best piece of advice you can give to people to stay calm? Is there any advice?
It's never going to go perfect. There's nothing you're ever going to do that's going to be the right way. Whether it's a contract negotiation, whether it's, a product that you have, whether it's a business deal, like, it's never going to be written the same way, but it's also not going to be perfect. And I think if you can kind of keep a level head and understand and come to common ground, eventually something great will happen.
In your life, what's the biggest failure that you've experienced, and what did you learn from it?
My biggest failure probably was when I got cut from Chicago. That was a place where I kind of saw myself staying for a long time. And to be honest with you, the only reason I view it as a failure is because I didn't win a Super Bowl for the McCaskey family. I think one of the most unique experiences I've ever had was watching her hold her father's trophy, winning the NFC Championship. And that'll be a memory for me that just won't go away. And it's something that I hope my kids can see. And, I think what I take away from that, well, there's things I would have done differently. And I changed those things in the time that I was out of the NFL that have been helpful for me the last 3 years to put me in this situation, right? I was the first guy franchised in the all off season. It's a kicker getting franchised 2 weeks before the deadline. It's just those things are, you never expect it to happen, right? It never goes the way you want it to go or how you're looking for it to go. But, those are things that you take and you move forward and hope that you can move your career in the right direction.
It's interesting with the combine coming up and the draft coming up. I've seen it transition. I've been in the game for so long, seen a transition of what players have the most value. And I have been waiting for the day, and I think especially because of what happened last season, many kickers are never drafted.
Yeah.
They're not drafted high if they are.
Sure.
But yet, 50-some% of all points are scored by them. The most critical moments are seized by them.
Yep.
And yet, I think the reason from my perspective as an agent and as an executive of sports is that it's almost the cover your ass syndrome, that if they
Sure.
take one, because the variable is
Sure.
you can't make them all.
Yep.
And you definitely can't make them all when they count.
Yep.
And there's a certain amount of whatever it is that exists.
Sure.
Even the greatest kickers miss sometimes.
Absolutely.
And if it's a wrong time, it could really cost you and be like, oh, he was a first round draft pick. They wasted all that money. No, he was 31 for 32.
Right.
It's just that the one he missed, double bonked at the wrong time.
Sure. I think the hard part though is, you only get paid on what you did in the past. You don't get paid for what you're going to do in the future. And that's
Wow.
all sports, right?
Right.
I mean, if you think about it, like I'm negotiating a contract of what I did the last 2 years, not what's going to happen the next 3, right? So there's like a huge what if for the organization. And as a player, like, well, I'm not going to, my age is not an issue. I'm 36. Like I just had the 2 best years of my career at 35 and 36. Vinatieri's 80 years old,
Exactly.
still kicking, right? Like
If Warren was a kicker, he'd still be kicking.
yeah, it's just one of those things where like, I think as you get older, you get wiser. And I think what's amazing about sports is a kicker you can play for a long time if you want to.
Yeah, you don't get hit that often.
Yeah,
Every
it's
once in
pretty
a while.
nice.
Last question, most importantly, what legacy do you want to leave when it's all said and done?
You know what's funny is I never really thought about what my legacy was going to be until the last 2 or 3 days, simply because of being franchise tagged and kind of having to go through all the options that go with that. So I talked to a lot of older players, guys like Warren Moon, the guys that have been in the Hall of Fame or guys that have been around the business for a long time. And, here's what I hope my legacy is. I hope people remember me that I was one of the greatest kickers to ever play the game, right? And at the end of the day, as awesome as that is, I hope that I'm remembered more for what I do off the field with, my close friend now, Chase, and his family he's going through thyroid cancer, and I got a chance to take him to the Super Bowl and his family to the Super Bowl with me this year and experience that, or whether it's, some other things we're doing through the community here or in San Francisco, that those moments in time and those conversations just like this, I hope it changes somebody's life. Because football's not meant to last forever. Records are meant to be broken. And at the end of the day, there will be another kicker. Whether it's at the 49ers years down the road or whether it's, 6 months from now, who knows, right? But at the end of the day, like, the legacy is that I made my kicks and that I was a great teammate. And more importantly, I did something that changed somebody's life.
Yeah, you've had great impact as you've been on the field now, and I foresee great impact off. And what's nice about our technology and branding and everything that exists is that perpetual content that exists. You can keep on impacting people both
Mm-hmm.
on and off the field, even when you're finally 60 and stop kicking, which could happen. But anyway, I'm looking forward to working with you. I'm really excited about the business that you're building. Proud of you. I know it's a little bit of challenging time, but I think the lessons that you'll learn through this franchise tag will just really solidify the next decade of playing, because you're going to learn things that no one else has learned before in your position. And I can tell you have the attitude and perspective of utilizing to the best of your advantage.
Well, I appreciate that, and I appreciate your time, and thanks for having me on the show.
Oh, awesome.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Appreciate
Robbie
it.
Gould, unbelievable kicker, even better entrepreneur. This is Dave Meltzer with Entrepreneurs, the Playbook.